Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of Paradyme Podcast. We hope you're having a great week. Looking over here, David's showing you the book we're reading right now. So this is Beyond Order by Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. We highly recommend you go pick up this book. For today's episode, we're going to be talking about Chapter 3. It's titled, Do Not Hide Unwanted Things in the Fog. So before we get started, we want to recommend to you guys all to subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment down below. What do you think of the book? We want to hear what you have to say so we can communicate with you guys. And then, follow us on our social media platforms. All the information will be down in the description below. We hope to see you, huh?
Yeah.
Nice. All right, so a disclaimer that we're going to start adding to the episode is that we here at Paradyme want to start each episode by saying, if anyone tells you they have all the answers, run in the opposite direction. We do not claim here to have all the answers. We simply desire to be better each day. We make videos in the hope that other people that desire the same can use some of the tools we've discovered along our journey. So without further ado, let's get into this.
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
So right back to the title, right? Do not hide unwanted things in the fog. So what are unwanted things? JBP defines unwanted things as, he provides an example here with his in-laws. His father-in-law, said Dell Roberts would habitually come home for lunch each day, and his wife would make him a meal. One day, without warning, he snapped and questioned, why in the world do we always eat off these tiny plates? I hate eating off these goddamn tiny plates.
Damn plates.
She had been serving him lunches on these plates for 20 years by the time he finally said anything. It is possible that he was irritated by something else that day, and did not really care about the plates. But in another sense, it is a trivial issue. But seen in another way, it is not trivial at all for two reasons. First, if something happens every day, it is important. Second, it is very common to allow so-called minor irritations to continue for years without comment or resolution. So here is the overarching problem. Collect 100 or 1,000 of those little inconveniences and your life is miserable and your relationship is doomed. Do not pretend you are happy with something if you aren't. And if a reasonable solution might be negotiated, have the damn fight. Unpleasant as that might be in the moment, it is one less straw on the camel's back. And this is particularly true for those daily events that everyone is so prone to regard as trivial, even the plates on which you eat your lunch.
Jeez.
Life is what repeats, and it is worth getting what repeats correct. So, what are some examples we have of unwanted things in our lives? How did we go about addressing them, and what were the results?
Right. So, get it, Devin. Get in there.
I think I identified this earlier. We have written for myself. I have peer accountability. When I first acknowledged this, I think I was probably like 24, 25 when I got into network marketing. I think I really liked the vibe or the environment that I guess go-getters get. You have other people to watch you try to rise up and maybe you fall down, but you're always at this like sort of competitive nature and you have people to be there for you. I think once I started getting out of that, I'm glad I found that sort of environment. It allowed us to create this. I think when we sat down and started to read a book, we recognized we want it to be more than a book club. We want it to be a counsel. We want it to be, if we can sit down and discuss what we're going through, what we want in life, our goals, our ambitions, our desires, then we can have not just ourselves, but we can have us four kind of align on where do you stand right now? What are you doing? And how long do you think it's going to take to get there? And we'll keep you on that path. I think that peer accountability, I lacked that for when I was younger. Due to just wanting to have fun, I guess you could just throw quotation like having fun and not really thinking about the longevity of where I want to end up in life. Having people around me really exposed me to a fog that, or I guess the things in the fog that needed to be like illuminated. They need to be like, you need to have people in your life that hold you accountable.
So the peer accountability was the unwanted thing that you didn't want at that time?
Well, no. So the unwanted thing would be, if I didn't have that, like if I continued down that path of like not having the peer accountability, I could fall susceptible to not achieving my goals because I can hold myself accountable. That's cool, but what's the greatest thing about being at the top if you do it alone, right? Or getting to where you want to get if you're doing it alone and not only you holding yourself accountable, but there's no one to see that you're progressing in the way you want to.
So it would be just non-progress, not meeting your goals would be like that.
In a sense, yeah.
Okay.
I think that peer accountability too. It's I think maybe that's the precursor to what really is might be unwanted, because once you tell people this is my goal, this is what I'm working on, then you have a responsibility not only to yourself to reach that goal, but
Absolutely.
I have to see you next Sunday, and I have to tell you that I didn't do it, and that's something I don't want to live with. That's so it's a responsibility not only to yourself but to the people you told of living up to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think a lot of people, and JBP talks about that. Like, I think a lot of people don't want to go into that fog just because you sort of have to hold the truth to yourself, and not only to yourself but to other people. Like, if you exposed it to other people, then you got to be held accountable. Yeah,
I mean, it probably makes you work a little harder, right?
Oh,
you don't want to
absolutely.
embarrass yourself.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So you went about addressing them by, outsourcing your sanity to a select group of people.
Yeah, seeking those selective people, because I think we talked about this in 7 Habits. Unfortunately, we didn't get that recorded, but we talked about making sure we choose the proper maps, making sure we choose the proper people to be around, because not everybody's going to understand your map, but it's not for understanding, it's the support system that you create behind that map.
Definitely. So. All right. How about you, David?
I would say an unwanted thing is just silencing myself, or the need that I feel like I can't speak up for myself. That's something I don't want. I want to be able to tell people how I feel and admit to our feelings, or admit to my feelings, which we'll get into later. But yeah, definitely just not wanting to feel like I can't tell people how I feel. It's a shitty feeling, and it always feels better, even though it is a little chaotic. You're introducing chaos into something that may be just complete order, which is just going down this lane where you do what you're told, don't speak up, don't question really. You could be like, what was his name? The Del Roberts guy?
Del Roberts, yeah.
And just, eat off tiny plates or whatever. But, you're introducing this chaos into your life by speaking or letting it out. It may not come out the way you want it way down the line, but at least if you address them now in a mature environment, then you could potentially have a better outcome versus letting stuff hit the fan in the way future. Because it's like Jay said, or JBP said, that something that happens every day is very important, because you do it every day. For me, if I'm every day not telling people how I feel, or kind of just sticking to
like sweeping it under the rug.
Yeah, like sweeping things under the rug, or not addressing or not having confrontation, healthy confrontation with someone, then every day it's going to compound into something that I don't want and doesn't go away. And so that's something I don't want.
Are you having trouble, like, is it like a conversation thing? Like, you have trouble expressing like what you're saying, I don't understand. Like, I kind of understand, but it's like,
no, yeah, you hit it right on the nail. Expressing how I feel.
Okay.
Yeah, because otherwise I would just be kind of silencing myself by not. You know what I'm saying? That's why I kind of said.
But is the problem expressing like a vocabulary thing? Like you don't know how to like tell people that you're upset, or that you just don't like it's just hard.
I guess
to, like,
I'm afraid of the I guess the confrontation sometimes. I think, you know what I mean? That could be the unwantedness that I get, and it's taken me time to get in the habit of telling people no. That's a big one for me, and that got me out of that zone.
Okay. So your route about addressing that is being able to tell people no.
I would say that, but I mean, it's a little bit more to that too. I mean, how do you address, speaking to someone? Well, I mean, you got to find the courage to kind of tell somebody or express how you feel, confront them. And, I guess it's kind of like how you said, Devin, holding people accountable to an extent too. I guess that kind of goes into how I feel, because usually when you hold someone accountable, the immediate reaction can be pretty chaotic. It'd be pretty bad, but I think I've had a trouble of holding myself or holding other people accountable too.
Yeah, because you're dealing in your silence, and you may have thoughts in your head, but
to tie it up. Yeah,
if you're not speaking, maybe, I don't know, situations are different. Everything's going to be different, like base to base. But I think if you're holding that in 1,000 times, you're going to break at some point, and then you're going to recognize I can't do this another 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
And I don't want that for myself. It's
So
unwanted.
do you have any examples of like some results where that happened recently? You're like, hey, I'm not going to be quiet about this.
Yeah, I do. I went out recently and someone had like thought something was cute and did it as a joke, like spilled something on me, and I was like I got kind of upset, but I was like, I think the old me would have been like, oh no, you're good, but I was like, hey, like that wasn't cool. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Like, if I'm gonna let it slide right now, but don't do that again. You know what I mean? And it's not like I'm coming at anybody sideways. It's just drawing a boundary with yourself and having the I don't know, like the confidence to just tell someone
it's
no.
not okay to spill shit on me on purpose.
Yeah,
of course, that's like a normal thing. Don't do that again. If that wasn't an accident.
Right. I did not want to be silent in that moment because I know if I did, I would be doing a disservice to myself. It's like, bro, that's not cool. I don't think people should be afraid to tell people how they feel.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that kind of comes back to a point too, is that people have expectations of other people, right? And if you don't let your principles be known, even if it's like a little thing like somebody spilling something on you, if you don't let your principles be known, then they're gonna make you adhere to their expectation,
right?
Rather than that's not okay with me. Don't cross that line, type of thing.
Yeah.
When to them it might have been.
In their mind, they could have had you like already figured out, and they're like, "He's a bitch. Watch this." You know? For real.
Right.
Okay.
Because why else would someone do that? For real, no one does that on purpose.
And I will say though, once it's a little bit weird, I guess maybe if you could, someone who's out there who doesn't really speak their mind, if you could relate, it does get easier because once you do it, you're like, oh shit, you kind of like, I have every right to tell people, how I feel.
Yeah.
It weeds people out too. It weeds the people that think that they can do everything they want and do whatever they want. Once you confront that person that like you're friends with them, but then you're like, nah, don't do that. That don't fly over here. Mm-hmm. Let's get that clear. Yeah. Then it checks them like, I thought I could do this. You know what I mean? Like, because they get so used to people not confronting and telling them how it is.
Yeah. So I mean, that comes back to conflict styles. If you have time, go look up conflict styles. Typically, people that avoid that's what happens, right? You stay silent and let things kind of hit you, just like Del Roberts, right? I mean, we've been using these plates for 20 years. I'm tired of these goddamn plates. You know what I mean?
Let's get into it. How about you, Jay?
For myself, there was some issues going on with family that kind of stayed underneath the surface and were brought to my attention before the family's attention.
Some unwanted family things?
Yeah, some unwanted things for sure. And so I thought about it for a couple of days, and I had to take a plan, and I had to develop a plan of action that it would be amicable, where I can bring this to the family as a whole and discuss what's going on and what I heard and get it out on the table, right? So I held a family meeting, and after that, it kind of led to some better communication amongst the parties involved. And so I got better communication out of planning how I'm going to hold a family meeting. Right. So I addressed the unwanted things in the fog by developing a plan and then giving that and executing it. Nice. That's kind of what I got. And out of that, I got better communication. So definitely.
Clarity too.
So I'll ask a follow-up question. How do you people hide their unwanted things?
I would like to say that like you can't identify them because I think you have to know. It's kind of like if you guys have something to say, but I feel like I want to like word. It's like you want it, but you don't know the unwanted things that you're gonna have to do to get what you want. If that makes what I mean, like
it's kind of a paradox. It's weird.
Yeah, it's like I want this Ferrari, but who's capable of having a Ferrari? Mm-hmm. A very small amount of people. Are you willing to do what the small amount of people are willing to do and go into that untapped mysterious land of the fog and figure out what you got to do, or are you just saying that you want a Ferrari and somehow it's just going to happen?
I mean, you could break that down, like that's like a big thing. You could break that down to just be like anybody at any level of life, whatever their ambition is, mm-hmm. whenever there's a failure or bump in the road, they look to point the finger. Like that would be like my red flag on like people who hide the fog. Like when there's a problem, the first thing I try to ask myself is like, what could have I done better to not have this happen? Because I think I'm the most dependable person in my life. You know?
Yeah.
Like who's got John's best interest? Me. So like depend on myself and then outwards. You know? So, but if someone's always like, that didn't work out because fucking so-and-so's a bitch, and like that's so-and-so's cousin, so of course he picked her over me. It's just like, well, you know, I guess there's always an excuse, you know?
Yeah.
But what's the common denominator? Is it you? Because that kind of sucks.
Ooh, yeah.
JBP talks about that. He's like, if it's hard for you to get women, is it all women or is it you? Right? Like if every single woman's telling you no, let's just say every single woman you ran into is telling you no, is it all women in the world, or is there something that you're not doing correctly?
Right. Yeah. Self-awareness.
You know what I mean? So I think John hit it right on the nail. Like that, it is a very broad question. However, we all individually know what our unwanted fogs are. If you can identify them, it makes your path a little bit easier, but you're still gonna have to tap into them.
Yeah.
You're still gonna have to travel through them to get where you want.
Yeah. I think one way I noticed, I've done tutoring and teaching basically all since high school's ended. I hear excuses, right? Like, you know, I'm just not good at math. Well, work for it, you know, like put in the work it takes to become good at math. I was terrible at math at one point, you know what I mean? But here I am tutoring you calculus, you know what I mean? There's things that are, you don't want to see in the fog. And usually people just kind of mask it by throwing up an excuse. Oh, I'm too old. I'm just not good at math. That's not in my repertoire. That's not in my bag. Like, that's typically what I hear is like an excuse to where it's like, I could just put this wall here and nothing, I'm not going to go past it because I don't want to. There's something there I don't want to see.
It's an excuse.
Right?
I kind of feel like people hide unwanted things too by like just like trying to choose a shortcut out of things and they're like, they see something, they assess how difficult it is that they want, and they're like, oh shit, it's a little hard. I'm not really trying to put in that work. Yeah. I'm going to go this way because it's easier, but it still rewards me the same sort of way.
Or you think it's going to reward you the same way.
Yeah, it's like, it's less of a contest for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's move on to what is the fog. So JBP defines it as the fog hides, what the fog hides is the refusal to notice, to attend to emotions and motivational states as they arise, and the refusal to communicate them both to yourself and to the people who are close to you. In other words, making a conscious decision to disregard problems and sweeping things under the rug. So do we have any examples of hiding things in the fog?
Personally?
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Personally things.
Yeah, I can go.
Go ahead, John.
I think a big thing, and I think this is kind of typical in men too. So, but like health stuff. Like, I know a lot of my friends are even example, like, let's say your foot hurts or you fall and trip and you're like, it's okay. And like, even though it hurts, you kind of just continue on, or like you have headaches or something and you never really like question like, why is all this really happening? Like, do my friends have the same aches and pains as I do? It's like, I guess that's just fucking human life. It's like, is it just a little bit of blood in my pee? I guess it's fucking fine, you know? And I have like, I know people who go down the line and like the bizarre things you hear and you're like, I want to get checked out, but like something about, I don't know. They're like,
It's like, I'm gonna put that in the fog for now.
So that's like the ultimate thing though, no? If I go to the doc, they might find something I don't want to hear about.
I wouldn't want to hear about, and I wouldn't want to change my life, you know?
Right.
I mean, a lot of people, this is a totally different, I was thinking a different way, but I mean, obesity is like one of the biggest problems in America, and like we refuse to acknowledge it. And then
or we just accept it.
And people are like, I have diabetes and like I'm having trouble seeing and my blood pressure is really high and I'm super susceptible to like illnesses. I wonder why. It's like, what do you eat every day? That would be an acknowledgement of like these two things like correlate with each other, right?
Yeah.
So that's how that'd be an example that I would choose. Health.
Okay. Nice.
Health can go so many ways. That's
and I can relate. I haven't been to the doctor in like 6 years, but for all I know, I'm healthy. But there's some questionable things I should talk about.
So for myself, I'd say, some examples of hiding things in the fog, all unknowns between us and our goals. So that breaking that down, we all have a goal, and if you don't, you should. But on the path to achieving that goal, there are plenty of unknowns. And so for myself, my life revolves around answering and researching 3 scientific questions. This is my professional, student, master's life. And as I read further literature, I'm starting to find my understanding's growing, but I'm always confronted with a topic I don't understand, but need to understand in order to answer the 3 big questions I am researching, right? So as I'm doing this, I'm writing down and analyzing the path to success as I walk it. So I read this paper. In order to answer this question, I have to figure out what these 3 topics are, right? And then I read a paper to figure out these three topics. Then I figure out 9 new topics, right? It's just this long list of things that I know I have to deal with in order to fully comprehend the idea that I'm researching.
Right. Yeah.
So in layman's terms, before you start a goal, understand the speed bumps and pitfalls that are going to be along the way. Write them out and prepare yourself before you get there.
Ooh, that is a good one.
Yeah,
that
was a great example.
So you said, say that again.
So before you start down a path towards your goal, there's going to be pitfalls and speed bumps along the way, right? So you have to look at those, prepare for those, so by the time you get there, you're not just thrown into it. You kind of have some sort of preparation.
I can honestly confidently say, with you saying that, your fog, you're so aware of what's standing in the fog that you're okay with like running into it and like expecting the downfalls and the things that you're not going to, because you're already setting yourself up to be like, I know this is, I'm going to have to tackle. Once I answer these questions, there's going to be 20 more questions that I have to answer. Yeah. And so I think your awareness around your fog is like excelled. You know what I mean?
In certain subjects.
Oh yeah.
Right?
No, yeah, absolutely.
Like, when my partner, he's going to be joining the master's program soon, I'm like, okay, what's the question you want to address, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, okay, caves, right? How do we get this cave? How old is it? All this stuff. I'm like, look, that's exactly what you need to write down, right? Caves. Okay, how old is it? That's one brain. You're doing a brain web in your head, right? A brainstorm web. Okay, age, composition, how did it get here? Then those break down into their own thing. So you have this overarching idea, but the brainstorm web just keeps getting bigger. Yeah. And you start with little things at the bottom, and then it sort of culminates into the main question, right? So whatever it might be, losing weight. Okay, what does losing weight mean? Diet, exercise, right? Okay, diet. What diet works for me? Research, keto, vegan, carnivore. There's all the different types of things you need to figure out for that. Okay, then money to make that happen, right? Just breaking it down incrementally and doing the things that you can do in order to achieve that.
Yeah.
Right. So that's for myself. That's how I, have examples of hiding things in the fog. Is people, including myself, don't want to do that sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Right? It's a lot of work, but it really does it's beneficial.
Yeah. An example of things that I think I've hid in the fog, relationships with family is a big one. It's like, I go back to the example that JVP made with Bell Roberts, is the tiny plate example, right? Something that happens every day is very important, because just for that alone, it happens every day. Mm-hmm. Is your days going to change, or is that thing going to get changed at one point?
Sorry about that.
You're good. All right, cut that. I don't know what that was. Yeah, no problem. But for me, there's times where I think as I've gotten older, I noticed, and once I became self-aware too, I noticed that there was things that happened every day in my household that didn't really get addressed until it was kind of already too late, and people have formed their patterns of, I don't know, habits that led up to that moment. And once they get addressed, it's often very reactive. It can be pretty chaotic, and people were like, well, it's been happening for this whole time. Why is it barely getting brought to my attention now? I mean, I'm sure whoever's listening now, if you were in that same position, right? You say you're with a partner or somebody, a family friend, and someone's blowing up on you, and you're like thinking in your head, like, dude, this isn't new. Why didn't you say anything earlier? But they probably felt afraid. Maybe they're silence. Maybe they're the example that I mentioned earlier. I see that scenario had happened with my family, and even though things got said, it definitely could have been addressed earlier.
Yeah.
And the reality is those things are in the fog the whole time, right? All of these things that maybe we should talk about, but no, let's just keep going this way because it's like that low road, you know. We're not taking the risky one, and we're gonna just keep driving where we can see and kind of, that fog's there, but I don't really want to deal with that. I don't want to see if there's something there that could be mended, or there's something there that could benefit us in the long run to address.
Yeah, I would honestly, I would tag along, or I can relate to that, like especially with family things, things that were hidden in the fog that maybe weren't addressed sooner. It was my mom and my brother. Like, one big problem I have with my brother is he does the same thing consistently over long periods of time, and I found myself having to like step up and be like the quote unquote big brother at some times.
Yeah,
and try to get through to him and tell him like the actions you're taking right now, like I'm not sure what you want in your life, and maybe we need to figure that out. And we sat down and talked about this in very deep detail. But I think if I would have addressed things sooner, maybe if I woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah,
but
that's a good way to put
at the end of the day, I wanted to address certain things in the fog on the behalf of him. But I also have to recognize I can't change people. I can't control people. All I can do is address the things that should have been talked about a lot sooner. You know what I mean? And yeah, I would love to see my mom and brother prosper in the way I want them to prosper. But they have their own individual lives too. So I got to remember. I personally have to remember that. And I think it's just a good wake up call for people to kind of like see, I guess, tell you how they envision you, or what they see out of you, what actions you're taking that could be harmful to you, and also positive. But I think the fog are harmful things. It's not harmful, but it could be in your benefit to tap into the fog and tackle those hardships.
Yeah.
And so I just try to be, I guess, an addresser in helping my brother find his fog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or even just come to the realization that, bro, you have this like this fog, or however you want to put it. You have things you're not dealing
helping
with.
them
You
become
probably
aware
just
of
don't know it, but it's happening every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because fog we think of this natural thing that just happens. It's like in this case that what JBP's saying is it's self-inflicted. You know it's there, right? You just refuse to address it, right? And whatever that might be, I honestly recommend going and really thinking about it. Just have maybe a day where it's just quiet and you think about certain things. Like, what do I want to do is a good question to start with, and why, right? What do I want to do with my life and why? And then really address the fog that's between you and that goal, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I want a better relationship with my family, okay, well, where's the problems for you, right? And why are they problems? It's really going in deep, and it's natural for it to happen, but it's self-inflicted.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, and it's definitely not.
I just want to go.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to go and bring up, like, I think naturally what you guys are all talking about, like those things that like make up the fog. So it's like a lot of things. It's not like one thing, you know, like different. But I think those things naturally bubble to the surface when you allow yourself to think. Like when you lay in bed, that's when you're like, gosh darn, I got to do that tomorrow. Or like you think of something that made you cringe that you did today, you know, and like you didn't want to acknowledge it, but now you're stuck with your thoughts and you're acknowledging it.
Yeah.
I think people today constantly don't allow themselves to just be alone with their thoughts and think. Like they wake up straight to music or podcast or whatever. Fuck it, you know?
I would agree.
And then like they gotta like always be talking to somebody, whether it's like online, Twitter, Instagram, on the phone, and then like immediately, let's say whenever they leave, they gotta plug into something else. They gotta like, plug into YouTube or do something. Or it's just like these are all other people's thoughts. you know, like do you leave time for yourself to think about like what's going on for you, you know?
Yeah.
And I think if you just made an hour a day like anything else you do to be healthy, like you would figure out like, whoa, I'm acknowledging a lot more things in my life, you know?
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's a really good point.
I think people are just afraid of that. Like John mentioned, some people, I think a lot of us, we dealt with that at one point, but sometimes we're afraid to tackle things like we may not know. Like say we're listening to a podcast and there's something that like we find inspiring, but we don't know how to pursue that inspiration. We don't know how to take our own steps to do it ourselves. So we continue to let people think for us in a way. You know what I mean?
It's just that maybe I don't want to take that time.
Yeah. I mean, like, podcast is good, learning's good, you know.
Absolutely.
But if like from morning from like wake up to wake down, it's just like all some sort of media going into your head when you have time for you. You know?
Yeah.
That's a
Agreed.
great point.
People do that.
Yeah. All right. So the next question being, how do we get rid of the fog to examine the unwanted things within it? So JBP recommends admit to your feelings and ask yourself why. He states in this chapter, why is wisdom, right? You know, what's interesting is when I read that, I was like, I thought of the kid that's like, why? But why? And why? But it's so interesting that kid is genuinely just trying to pursue wisdom, right?
Jay, that's funny. When I first heard that, because this is for me the most important part of the whole chapter.
Yeah.
I thought of some like philosopher that's like smart, and he's like, why?
Right.
Like
the thinker for real.
Of life?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
and then why?
I don't know. He's like, but why?
Right. And I feel like I was listening to this podcast called Philosophize This, and he said people get to a point in their life where they just think, you know, your whole life from beginning to when you stop going to school is learning. And then once you get a job, you just figure something else out, you just stop learning. Your desire to continue learning stops at some point.
You stop asking why.
Right? And that's stop asking why, right? And because of that, you just see this kind of inflection point in people's lives where it's like, okay, life isn't really about progressing, or life really isn't about learning more. It's kind of just surviving.
Yeah.
Stability. And so asking why, it's interesting how it's the kid or it's the older philosopher that's sitting there thinking, you know, why? It's never that person that's, I don't know, 25, 35, 45. It's just at the end and at the beginning. Right. So I thought that was really interesting that, you know, it was the kid just why we get annoyed with that, but genuinely that's what we're doing till the day we stop going to school, I guess.
Yeah. Once we get out of school.
All right. But I mean, that's what we're doing here, right? I mean, we're trying to figure out how to become better men. Okay. Well, here's how JBP recommends it. Well, why? That's why we're talking about this on the podcast.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, why start this?
Right. So take that time, ask yourself why. The question to us is, how do we develop the courage to express our feelings? John, you want to start?
To express our feelings?
Yeah.
Or admit to our feelings, like JBP says.
Admit to our feelings. I would say that alone time with yourself, to allow yourself to think,
Okay.
you know?
Alone time.
Because I want to say it's JBP, or it could have been another book. Maybe it's 7 Habits. I think it's JBP. He defines thinking as a conversation with yourself. So you actively need to be 2 people.
Yeah. That was the first 12 rules.
Yeah.
So that means like you're asking the why within yourself, and you're trying to give like a valid reason for X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I think to have that inner dialogue with yourself, and then to feel confident that like the conclusion you came with that you can roll with, and like it might not be right, but that's okay. Then like you'll handle that next situation, you know?
Yeah.
But you got to be confident and like to be able to move forward.
Yeah.
With your thought process, your thinking, and then like action, you know?
Yeah. I want to ask too, where does trust play a role in that?
I guess, like start with trust that your conclusion is something that could be something successful, you know?
Okay. Trust the process type of thing.
I think some people don't have trust within themselves, and they label that as not being confident.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We all have
And then if you can trust yourself, it's easier to trust others and for others to trust you. So that's like part of like being like independent and interdependent.
Yeah. Yeah, those are really good.
So,
Alone time,
and
trust.
I think like to reel it back, the question was, how do you? Sorry, Ace is doing.
Oh, you're okay.
Reel it back. The question is, how do you admit to your feelings? Is to first be able to have the inner dialogue with yourself, and then go out.
Nice.
internal than external.
All right, how about you guys?
I think mine sort of aligns with that idea, the internal dialogue, the internal respect, the internal integrity. If you're not willing to dive within yourself to find the unknown, how are you able to go out into the unknown in the real world and find what you want, right? Like, I think you have to answer the questions for yourself first and find what you want first and what you need first. And then you start to tackle, right? You ask that question and you break it down into a bunch of smaller questions, and you have this small stepping ladder to a bigger stepping ladder. If you can't ask yourself or explore the fog, then it's hard to identify. I feel like you're just going to be in this like never ending 360 of like there's fog everywhere, but you're not moving down a path. You're kind of just spinning in circles, not going anywhere. And so once you identify a path, or you've identified some sort of direction or process that you want to go through to find enough meaning in it, then you can find that trust. You can find that courage. You can find that integrity within yourself to go with the process, trust the process, know that you're not going to know everything. There is going to be downfalls, upfalls, or up trends or whatever. Like you just know yourself. You found out what you wanted, your desires, and you're admitting to it. And you're not just freely going through life anymore. You're very purpose driven. You're very intentional with your actions.
Absolutely.
But I think it aligns with what John's saying. You first have to be truthful with yourself. You know what I mean? And then you can tackle everything else after that.
Oh yeah.
Truthful in yourself, like what Devin was talking about. It's like, you know, and if you don't do it, you got to be like, okay, well, that's my fault. You know, like all the things you talked about. It's like, okay, well, am I trustworthy? Like, am I showing up on time? Like, if I set goals, am I holding myself? Like, do I trust myself to achieve these goals? You know?
Yeah.
And then if you don't, like, do you trust yourself to be like, hey, that was me. Like, I'm retarded. Or cut that.
Yeah. That's what JBP mentions that though. He says something like that in the book where, like, if you do set like a goal or a desire and you don't trust yourself enough, you're afraid of the failure, so you stop doing that sense of creating a purpose because you don't want the failure to happen. So you kind of just live in the fog, and the fog's around you, and it's there. It's always there.
And I mean, that ties back into what I think people aren't acknowledging the fog is it being someone else's fault, not their own fault.
Yeah, I think, exactly. Because he says in the chapter 2, if you choose a goal and you start, you know, you're not living in the fog anymore, then you came to the realization that you failed because of you, right? It's not because of outside circumstances.
Right.
But I mean, I wouldn't want to fail because of somebody else. I think I'd rather have the agency to be like, oh no, I did that.
Yeah, like I failed myself.
Sometimes things are out of your control, and that's real life.
Yeah.
You know, but you can be like, I really did put it on the table because you've been real with yourself since the beginning of your journey.
I think people don't underestimate how much influence they have over their own journey.
For real.
You know what I mean? You're probably the bigger catalyst for stuff like that than life's 1 in a million things where it's like, this isn't happening because that's just how life is going to go. The uncertainty.
I think accepting that, like, one thing that helps me is like accepting everybody's going through the same thing. You're not special.
Yeah, true.
You're not special.
I would like to bring up an example of someone like being responsible for change.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of weird stuff about censorship, and people are like, I don't believe in censorship or blah, 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 blah. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, bought the biggest stake in Twitter and was like, okay, if it's a problem, I'm going to take action. Like, I don't know. That's being pretty proactive in, like, his sphere of influence. His sphere of influence is probably the biggest, like, one of the biggest in the world, but, like, it just shows, you know?
Yeah. Definitely does.
How about you, David? How do you think we develop the courage to express?
To express our feelings? I mean, I'll keep it short and sweet. Like, for me, in my example, I just had to take the first step, and it was probably the scariest step to even address something that is in the fog. It's, like I said, it's chaotic at first. Reactions are going to be pretty heated, especially, like, I mean, considering, like, family relationships, even partner relationships, stuff at work, whatever, especially if it's been going on for a long time every day. And maybe those things not even are directly related to someone else, but it's within you. So it's just making the first step within yourself, and that just comes back to discipline. So, you know, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step.
Damn.
You know what I mean?
Bars. That was good right there. Oh yeah. All right. For me, I would say being pragmatic, and so being pragmatic is defined as dealing with things sensibly and realistically in a way that is based on practical rather than theoretical considerations. Right? How many times have we had a conversation with people where it's like, well, what if, fill in the blank. Well, what if fill in the blank? It's like we can what if all day. You know what I mean? I'm a Raiders fan. What if the Raiders won the Super Bowl? Hasn't happened in a long time, in my whole life, actually. So what are we talking about? You know what I mean? So being pragmatic, understanding that life has its ups and downs, right? Understand that no matter what you do, there will be suffering in your life. There is no avoiding it, right?
Nope.
Our natural desire for humans is to be comfortable and to have order. But here's the thing. it's not always going to be like that, right? Take that time, realize that, right? I mean, I'm trying to realize it every single day that this isn't just, we ain't going to be comfortable all the time, right? So be pragmatic. Yeah. Realize that you're going to have your ups, realize you're going to have your downs, realize you're going to suffer, and realize you're going to be ecstatic at some points in your life. So if you're secure now, you won't be in the future, and you need to prepare for it, right? So admit to yourself that I'm not going to be okay at some point in the future, so how do I prepare for that, right? I know I'm going to suffer in the future, so how do I prepare for that? Being pragmatic now allows for preparation for the future. That's what I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. And then, so how does getting rid of the fog benefit us? So JVP says, the information or lessons within our fog is latent, like gold in ore. It must be extracted and refined with great effort and often in collaboration with other people before it can be employed to improve the present and the future. So how about you guys? How do you think getting rid of the fog can benefit us?
I think...
We just want to go ahead and say, I don't think you can ever get rid of the fog.
Okay.
I think you can get, like, you can disperse the fog for one particular thing maybe, you know?
Right.
But, like, I think that's just a theory. Like, what is the fog? You know, we've been talking about it this whole time. It's like a lot of things, you know?
Yeah.
And
so I think it's more like, what's the benefit from having a headlamp to be able to see, like, examine what's in the fog, you know, instead of like walking blindlessly.
Right. It ain't no way of dissipating it all.
Could fall off a cliff.
Right.
Yeah, true.
Because, like, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think there's always going to be like new fog too. Like, just say you get through a lightly or a transparency or a transparent fog that's not so dense.
Yeah.
And say you jump into a challenge that's harder. Like, right, you hit a goal, but now you're jumping into something that's harder. What if that fog is thicker?
Now it's that country fog.
So I think the fog, like John said,
thick fog with greasy.
it's always going to be there. You're always going to tackle things that you want and go into fog that you don't know where you're going to end up. But as far
I have a question about that. What's the thickest fog you had to deal with then?
Like, are you talking about like a challenge that I went through?
Yeah.
Back in 01, fog was about 3 foot deep. You know?
You got that Virginia fog.
Yeah, I was in the country, and you know what I mean? I couldn't even see the hood of my car no more, man.
I would probably say, like, because it's not really fog, but, like, I think just finding personal, I don't know how to identify that, but I would like to say, like, finding the strength to stick to, like, my discipline, right? Like,
Yeah, dude.
like just a mental thing, not like a discipline, like a profession or anything, but just being disciplined with my life, right? Like, if I want to land somewhere, then I always have to be jumping in a new fog. I always have to be in fog. I think you noted it perfectly. When we get older, we forget to keep educating ourselves. We have to keep learning. We have to keep going to explore new ways of doing things maybe more effectively or improving our lives. And because you said there's going to be a future time where we're not going to be happy or we're not going to be suitable or where we're at. We're always going to want something different.
Right.
So how do I prepare for that moment? How do I get myself ready to when I hit the future and that might be scarce or hard, scary? Am I preparing now? Am I educating myself now? Am I learning now? So I would just say my own challenge to get through, like, the silence and sitting alone and learning how to think with myself without having someone else feed me thoughts, right? Like, if I want to land somewhere, I'll have to think on my own. And can I properly do that?
Okay.
So
how does that benefit you?
It keeps me on course. It definitely, like, I'm aware of when I'm off course because I start to feel this, like, dwindling of my thoughts kind of just running crazy. Okay. Instead of having structured, that's why I keep my calendar, like, it's always up to date so I can see, like, also writing too. Writing is, like, a big thing for me, like writing everything that I want to get done in the week. I'm not going to hit everything. I'm not expecting myself to hit everything because I've proven to myself, like, it's hard to hit everything. Oh, yeah. So do things that you find that are going to be the most effective for you and try to do them as often as possible so you can sort of remember them. And the new things that are coming down, write those down, right? So they're new and it's hard to remember. So get those thoughts out of my head, become more disciplined with the reading, the writing that I'm putting in my calendar, and just stay consistent. When you're falling off the path, you'll know you're falling off the path because you'll feel that. You'll feel maybe depression, anxiety, like you're not doing anything. That's probably a good sign that you're falling off course a little bit.
So do you do like, how do you document that? You just write down what's in your head,
weekly,
or you
weekly?
It's just a writing thing, or is there structure to it?
Oh yeah, so I have a journal that I keep my weekly calendar, and if I need to write just thoughts just to get them out, I just start writing. I don't have no structure on Monday, Tuesday, or this month. Though I just start writing. Like, why do I feel like this?
Okay.
And that kind of clears where I need to be in that moment.
Yeah.
What do I need to do? Do I need to go for a run? Do I need to journal more? Do I need to study some educational material? Do I need to talk to somebody? You know what I mean? Like, so it gives me just guidance, but
that's good. Yeah. I think writing's huge. It's just taking the time to actually do it.
Yeah. And I'm doing some of my journal, like entries are just like, there's no structure. It's just random thoughts, like just random as hell.
Go back and read it like, this guy's crazy.
Yeah. So, but I think it's definitely like being able to have not proper thought, but having thought and being able to articulate in a writing and say you can communicate that to somebody. JBP says like you're almost like untouchable because you know how to articulate yourself. You know how to communicate. So that's how the fog benefits me, I guess. Or getting rid of it.
Or dispersing those stuff within the relative area.
Yeah.
Okay. How about you guys?
Go, John.
I really have nothing to add. I just want to say the opposite of the fog is ignorance is bliss, you know?
Jeez.
I was thinking about, because Devin's doing this journaling and keeping like a weekly and a monthly calendar, like that shit I don't like. And like maybe that is my fog. I'm so sorry, dude. Give me a second.
We'll cut that out.
All right. Go ahead, David. How about you? How do you think getting rid of the fog in the immediate area can be beneficial?
Yeah, it just tips the balance towards opportunity, like Jordan B. Peterson says. I think he put it in his book that if you don't attempt to uncover these things, then you're almost destined for certain failure. Oh yeah. And it's simply because you're not taking the step to at least just see what it is, right? See what's in the fog, or what it is, like at least one thing in there that you can address, right?
Oh yeah.
And then once you do take that step, there's an opportunity. There's not an outcome that is 100%, but at least you're giving yourself the opportunity to at least address it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, dude. I think this will be a sick animation.
What, the fog?
Walking through the fog and running into sharp shit and walls and
put on a headlamp.
And then he learns from each one. Oh, okay, maybe I need this.
That thick fog coming in.
Yeah, dude. I think that'd be a sick animation.
That would. Like Ray Dalio.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you watch a new one? I was going to send it to... Oh my God.
I didn't know we had a new one. I need that.
It's so good.
All right. John, you want to enunciate on that? What you were saying?
Ignorance
I was just going to say the opposite of like what you guys are talking about. Like, ignorance is bliss. You know, I personally, I don't keep a weekly calendar. Because thinking that far ahead, I don't like to do it. Like it messes like with how I operate, you know? And maybe that is my fog, but I'm happier that way, you know?
He's on John calendar time. John time.
It is like, and you guys know me. Am I not good about keeping up with like times and shit like that?
Yeah. Definitely.
But, like writing all on paper, that gives me anxiety because I see it all there. I'd rather like have it all scrambled in my head.
But you are he is pretty successful, right? Yeah. He gets everything he needs to get done, and he has a dog, and he's a teacher.
Yeah.
And he does all these trips on the weekends, and it goes back to the 7 habits, the weekly plan, right? There's some sweet spot in there. Planning weekly leads to better, I guess, outcomes or opportunities.
Yeah.
There are different procedures, right? For John, he doesn't write it down. For you, you do write it down. Like, but it works for different people in different ways.
Maybe that is my fog, but like the whole slogan, ignorance is bliss, like for me, it's like, I don't want to see all that, to be honest. like when Tuesday comes, I'll go, I'll remember what I have to do Tuesday. But, like,
I imagine John clears his path for the week, and then he gets to the edge, and then he sees a field of fog, and then he sees like tips of little tiny mountains, and he's like, there's something over there, but we're gonna figure that out later when I go down the hill.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we said earlier. There's always that sense of fog. There's always going to be that fog. Like the way I tackle my fog is totally different the way John. It seems like John embraces the fog. Yeah. He's not afraid to do things without certainty. Like he will go figure it out. Let's figure it out on the way. I'm not going to sit here and analyze the fog to just sit here and analyze the fog. You know what I mean? So
he walks into the object and then figures it out, takes care of it, walks into the next one.
If you think about that, that's one of the best ways to learn, because you're experiencing through it. Like,
Can I tell you guys just a really quick story? It's like about hand. Nah, never mind. I'll say it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
About you, Jay.
So for myself, I like to look into the fog and look for shapes. You know what I mean? I'll be like, okay, what am I about to run into? Okay, that's what I'm about to run into. Okay, let me look into my bag over here. What do I got for that? You know what I mean? Yeah. And throw the Pokeball at it, and then I fucking deal with that at that.
That was a beautiful explanation.
And it might have been the wrong course of action, because I'd got to water one for some sort
Pokemon.
of exactly.
Yeah, bro. If you're in a rock type area, you're definitely gonna come prepared with some water type Pokemon.
Yeah, bro, don't be bringing no air over here. But seriously, that's how I do it. I like to look into the future week. Here's what I gotta do. Here's where I can make it happen. I do the thing, kind of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where I write out my roles, like individual, researcher, student, son, brother, so forth, going forward. And then here's what I need to do in order to be the best at that for this week. Mm-hmm. And I have a list of all these things. So it's like, let's say up to 20, I think I've had like 30 things in a week, not roles, but like 30 things underneath the roles. And then what I do is I'll calculate out a percentage each week of how efficient I was. Right. And so for myself, I like to be highly analytical like that. Mm-hmm. That's not for everybody, and that's okay. But for myself, it highlights where I need to put more attention or where I'm slacking a little bit. This week, I was a little bit lower on my efficiency rating, like this past week, because I had some things come out of left field where I was like, oh, like this mapping, I can make it happen this weekend. Let's go. Mm-hmm. So that took precedent over everything at that point. But so for myself, how can getting rid of the immediate fog be beneficial? I think it highlights lessons that need to be learned in order to achieve a goal, right? That's overall, I think it's beneficial in that way, because, hey, this is what I need to learn in order to achieve this goal. Yeah. So, all right. So some final thoughts. What do you guys think the viewer should take away from this chapter, if you haven't discussed it already?
I think one thing that I embrace is failure. I think like JBP talks about that. And a big part of this chapter, there's a subheading where he talks about like a lot of people won't jump into things because of the fear of failure. I think David said it earlier, like if you're afraid to fail, then even if you're not planning to succeed, you're at least planning to fail because you're not planning to do anything. Mm-hmm. So where's success going to lie? If you're not planning to land at success, you're inevitably just going to be planning to fail without even planning to even do anything. So I think embrace the failure, enjoy the journey, trust your process. Like there's a video that I watched, a little small TikTok that like was like some philosophy, like I forget what movie it was, but the guy was like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to be here right now. And he's like, drop something on me. And he's like, if you dreamt 10 years from now, you would still feel this feeling. Even if you were where you wanted to be, the feeling would still remain. It wouldn't change unless you start to embrace the present moment. Recognize the present moment is where you need to be. Mm. If you want to always change that, who's to say in the next 10 years you're not going to still be feeling the same way? You know what I mean? So live now, make the best of what you can right now, and figure out while you're here. Stop thinking so far into the future. Stop thinking about like what I want and what I need. Like tackle the small steps. Right? Embrace the now. So I think accept failure and move with your journey and just embrace it all.
Yeah.
Failure is guaranteed.
I'll just tag along with that. Make the first step, like Devin's saying. Like we said, if you at least make the first step, you'll at least tip the scale a little bit towards opportunity versus complete failure.
Yeah.
John, did you have anything to add, or?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from this chapter is to why. Why equals wisdom. Throughout your life, remember to ask why. If you fail, the question is, why did it fail? And then you can maybe succeed by trial by elimination. Mm-hmm. If you have success or partial success, to be like, well, why did that work that time?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask why. Like, why should I go to school? Why should I go to college? Why should I get this job? Why should I work a place? Ask yourself why.
Yeah. I like how you said that, John, because I think that it reminds you why you're like,
so fun.
why
No,
you're
I'll tell
doing
you later.
things. But I think that remembrance, like always reminding yourself your why, right? Like I want to retire my family. I want to do this. That's why I'm working at this restaurant job. That's why I'm doing this to get this to this place. I think that keeps you going.
Know your why.
Yeah,
that's a
your
big
why,
one.
So
That's huge. Similar to Devin, I would say, this comes from JBP, but he says success at any given endeavor often it means trying, falling short, learning from the failure, and then trying again and falling short again, often repeated ad nauseum. So that just highlights in a long form that the path to success isn't linear, right? It's got its ups, it's got its downs, it's got its ups, it's got its downs. If you're doing it correct, the trend line of that graph just continually goes up.
yeah.
Right. So understand that it's not going to be linear. It's not going to be this perfect straight line. Understand that you're going to have failures, and failures guaranteed, like Devin said. So I'm going to take us out. Anything else you guys want to say?
I really like this chapter. I really enjoyed this chapter. But
Great book.
I'm really excited for the next one. Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Paradyme Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Drop a comment down below. Let us know what you thought. Is there anything you think we should have added? Anything you would add to somebody that's watching this episode? So subscribe to the channel, like the video. Again, drop a comment down below. We want to hear what you think, your thoughts, so we can discuss with you. And follow us on all our social media platforms. All the information will be down in the description below. And before you take off, remember, now equals tomorrow. Peace.
Peace out.